One of the things that always miffs me, just a little bit, is the 12 days of Christmas, when presented not as the time between Christmas and Epiphany, but when presented by retailers as those 12 days before Christmas when you got to go buy all your stuff. We as Christians, though, live in a season where the 12 days is a period of continued celebration. Not of getting ready, but of actually celebrating. Beginning with the birth of Jesus on Christmas, and continuing through the feast of technically tomorrow, though we celebrate it today. So here we are on day number 11. Is that 11 Lords a-leapin'? I always forget. But we continue our Christmas celebration. We've been filling in a little bit at a time with the manger scene up front, and today we have the wise men and the camels. We have finally gotten all the pieces. Sherry had found Jesus in the nick of time. Jane found Jesus. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. Jesus was found in the nick of time and placed in the manger, but we've been adding those other pieces as we go. And so today, the scene is complete. We have the shepherds who come to us from Luke's gospel, and now we have those Magi from Matthew's gospel who are making their appearance. And if you take a moment and just inhale deeply the smell of the frankincense and the myrrh that we passed around, you can get a little sense of what that day must have been like when they arrived. Matthew, of course, tells us that some time had passed. Jesus and his parents were in a house, not in the barn, so we don't have that smell to worry about with Epiphany. But today we celebrate those wise ones, those who were astrologers most likely, coming from the east, from Iran, from Persia. Those who were trying to follow the ancient prophecies that they had heard, perhaps those who had been impacted by the presence of those exiles in Babylon, who had told their stories, who knew that there was something one day yet to come. And so the wise ones, bearing their gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, made their way to Jerusalem to seek the one who had been born King of the Jews. Now, being wise ones, they figure that the place that you look for the newborn king is in the palace of the old king. And so they showed up on their camels and they knocked on the door. And no doubt King Herod, still wearing his bathrobe, came down and greeted them, welcoming them, saying, "Hey, I'm so glad you're here." Okay, we know it wasn't like that. Herod was not the sort to open his own door. In fact, Herod was the sort who would probably send soldiers to surround you with the pointy ends of the spears, just to make sure that you weren't a threat. Herod was a bit paranoid. So paranoid, in fact, that he had his own children executed because he didn't want them to take the throne from him. Yeah, that guy. And so when the wise ones arrived saying, "We're looking for the newborn king," his response was not, "Oh, good, let me help you." It was much more, "Oh, you better tell me where this newborn king is so that I can take care of him." And not in the sense of sending gifts. But they had that back and forth conversation. Well, where might he be if he's not here? And Herod sends for his advisors, and they say, oh, he's in Bethlehem, that place where the prophets told us to look for the Messiah. Herod sends those wise ones from the east off on their journey. And when you found him, come back and tell me, so that I too can go and worship him. And we have the story that unfolds. As the wise folk bring their gifts, as they kneel in homage before baby Jesus, as they present their gifts to Mary and Joseph, and then in a dream, are warned not to go back to Herod, not to participate in the plot, but instead to go home by another road. And that's where the story ends with the lectionary reading for today. The story, though, continues. It continues with those wise ones who have gone off on their way. They've left the story. We never see them again. But we see Herod. Herod, who now, incensed that the wise folk have not come back to him, sends soldiers to kill all the babies. We see Mary and Joseph, warned in a dream to flee that violence, and as refugees they go to Egypt, seeking safety for their little one. It's a story, of course, that we would like to believe stays 2,000 years ago. But it's a story that echoes again and again, and we see it today. People fleeing violence in their homes, crossing national boundaries, seeking safety. We see political leaders doing violence against children. And in that, we find that we are called to be wise. Perhaps there's not a whole lot that we can do as individuals, but maybe as faithful people, looking out for the welfare of God's children, resisting the violent impulses of political leaders, we can find another road, a way of at least not participating, a way of warning, maybe a way of sheltering, a way of helping through our gifts. It isn't easy. It's never easy when we look at the realities of our world and see the reflection of biblical stories that make us uncomfortable. I wish it were. But when we're uncomfortable, perhaps that's when we're most open to change. When we're most open to wrestle with truths that trouble us, to find another road as God's people. Today, as we celebrate Epiphany and the gifts of those wise ones, we remember that the greatest gift wasn't the gold, it wasn't the frankincense, it wasn't the myrrh. It was the gift of non-complicity, the gift of going another way, of denying the mad king what he requested. May we then find ways in our life to go another road, to transform the world for justice, to resist evil and oppression. And may we find in all of that we bring our very best gifts for God and for the baby in the manger. Amen.